Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast.
Okay,
Where
that
this week we
one.
have decided to engage in the trend of bad faith journalism by finally doing an entire episode about why I think Xenoblade Chronicles is bad, even though I've only played 12 hours of the first game. That makes me qualified to talk about it, right?
We all know
Absolutely.
Xenoblade is the ants to Trails' Bug's Life.
Oh, this is gonna be my new favorite inside joke. This is gonna be a meme template in Noisy Pixel. I am your host as usual. I am Noisy Pixel staff writer Colin Buchanan, and I am joined as usual by my co-host, fellow staff writer Nathan Mejia, and our special guest for the week. He is also a Noisy Pixel staff writer and also a VTuber. Go follow him on Twitter. We have Semi.
Hey, what's up?
So, the topic for this week is Stray vaguely, but more specifically, the internet reaction to Stray. And I wanted to have Semi on because Semi recently streamed the entire game on Twitch.
Yes, I did.
And I, a couple weeks ago now, saw a very, very, very bad faith Kotaku article, wrote an entire response piece to it, and then it just kind of kept going after that. So basically, the gist of the bipolar reaction to Stray is there's the people that engaged with it for what it was and liked it, and there's the people that are really pissed that it wasn't just a game about being a cat. So I wanted to start by asking what either of your experiences has been. Obviously, I reviewed it, so I've already gone on kind of about that, but we can come back to me.
Yeah, I can go first. I personally loved it. I had a fantastic time playing the game. I felt like there was still a lot to the game that made you feel like a cat, like a lot of the more subtle things, whether it be a lot of the movements, the way you can rest on certain areas like a pillow or someone's chest or something, and the cat scratches, all of that. I felt there was a lot of elements still about being a cat that really worked perfectly, honestly. And the story outside the larger narrative, I suppose, I don't think it was nothing too complex. It definitely simplified, but I still think for what it was still very entertaining and engrossing. Yeah.
This game encourages you to be a cat to such a degree that there is a trophy for taking a nap for an hour.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Just play a different game, do something else, just take a nap for an hour, baby.
I definitely would not do that on stream.
Actually, you could put yourself under just chatting.
Yeah, I suppose just have it in the background. Yeah.
Nate, how about you?
So I think when I first played it, I played about 3 hours of it, so I'm about halfway through it. I was surprised by how much game it was, mostly because I feel like the marketing was more like, oh yeah, we're just going to hang out. You're just going to do a couple things as cats. And, there'll still be an obvious trajectory, but I expect to interact with the world in a way more complex than scratching or jumping on stuff to solve puzzles. So when, we get the little robot buddy, and I'm like, oh, we're translating stuff, we're interacting with it as if it is a video game. I was surprised.
Sorry for the fire engine sounds.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
My cat is burning someone's house down or something.
Awesome. But I did like it, and I think adding that little bit of more game to it and adding the robot buddy in to kind of explain the world made a lot of sense.
So I played Stray in its entirety on launch day because we were obviously trying to get the review out as fast as possible since we didn't get an advance code for it. I adored it. I emotionally connected to it. I was like, yes, I understand exactly what this game is going for, and I am here for it. And I think that part of that is just like, I don't really get caught up in hype trains for games all that much, unless it's just like purely for the memes of it. Like, so I was invested in like the game where you got to play as a cat, but not so much so that I was like, okay, if this is literally anything then other than, you know, a game where you play as a cat, I'm going to be emotionally devastated by it. And so that was kind of that kind of left me a little bit shocked when I saw the negative discourse because people felt betrayed by the fact that this game had a narrative.
I always knew there was going to be a narrative to it. I expected the narrative to kind of be like while you're exploring though, and not told to you. So you'd be hearing stuff, people talking as you're rummaging around as a cat. Not how it was presented, but I don't get why people were like, I wanted all cats all the time. Give me the cats.
For me, I definitely didn't expect the narrative to go in the direction that it did. For, you know, based on what I saw from the game, like, you know, the screenshots or whatnot. And but I think those complaints would only be valid if the narrative, you know, was poorly done. But I don't think anything really was that poorly done. It was simple. It wasn't like grand by any means, but I think it did its job perfectly.
So I do want to kind of broadly put a spoiler warning here for Stray. If you haven't played it and you don't want to know basically the narrative of the game or how it ends, because that's kind of where a lot of the discourse is coming from. I would just proceed to the second half of this episode. I think, Nate, you can probably make a time code for it.
I can make a timestamp for it.
It's kind of difficult to talk about this game and the way that people have reacted to it without discussing the story, especially because there again are people that are pissed off that it had one, and it's not just a game about wandering through a city as a cat. So in broad strokes, story of Stray is you play as a cat who is separated from their friends. The cat is not named or gendered. It doesn't have an owner, so there's no one really to impose that upon the cat. And falls into a walled off city, basically into the slums, and has to find its way out of the city with the help of a small robot drone that it meets, who is trying to get its memories back after seemingly being abandoned by the scientist that created it. And sort of as you go through, you meet the current inhabitants of the city after the implied extinction of humanity, which are these helper robots that we left behind, and over like the 700 some years since humanity went away, they have become sentient and basically formed a society out of the ruins of our society. And so it's sort of a game about like what might come next after humanity and how they might be affected by what we leave behind, because you find out that these robots are like in a societal structure that is just like burdened very heavily by the way that humans behaved, to the point where like the robots that you meet at first are in the slums and they're trying to make their way up to the upper parts of the city where it's not so dangerous. And when you finally get up there, you find out that the law enforcement agency in the top part of the city is literally keeping the elevator closed. And so like there's a lot of commentary on, you know, kind of how what we leave behind is potentially going to be just as shitty as we are. And there's also a lot of like how non-human can something be before it is considered non-human, because like the robots are all sentient, they all express and experience human emotions, they have family unit, so it's very much like there's not really any humans to be seen in this story, and yet a lot of these characters still behave as if they are human. I felt like that was kind of similar in concept to Untitled, which I reviewed last year, which also was about like a robot society after the extinction of all the humans that created them. So I thought that was all really cool, and the way that the game ends has apparently generated some controversy, because the game ends with the cat with the help of the drone basically unsealing the city so that the robots are able to escape the city and, you know, spread out over what remains of the planet.
Mhm.
And it does not include the cat getting reunited with his friends. And
Yeah.
apparently this is something that is causing people to lose their minds, even though I think that would have been really freaking stupid.
So when I finished the game on stream, I definitely had audience members at like seem questioning, like they were questioning, like, oh, where's the cat's friends? Or if I watched other people stream, it was the same reaction, like, is that it? That's just the ending.
Mhm.
And I didn't think it was necessary to have it happen by any means. Like that could have been a fine ending, but it's not like it was needed. And for people to have such a huge reaction, like an overreaction that would make them have a negative viewpoint of the game, I think that's a bit excessive.
Yeah, like I saw people being like, especially, I'm going to keep going after Kotaku because that was the article that I went after, but the guy that wrote that article then went on to do an interview with a different Kotaku writer, and they like had a whole discussion about how betrayed they were by the ending of this game, and this was like a week and a half after launch. Like, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. That's so weird, especially since like it feels almost like preschool level to be like, oh, and then we have to wrap it up in a nice little bow with no things, and it's like, why do we have to have the cat's friends or family or whatever they were to the cat just randomly show up and just know psychically this is where we must stand?
Yeah, I actually quite like. Sorry.
Go ahead, Semi.
Oh, my bad. I was just saying that I kind of like how a lot of the story is open to interpretation. What the robots are going to do, what really happened with the society, and like, yeah, what the cat's going to do after. Like, I didn't think a lot of it needed to be cookie cutter or like giving like spoon fed to you. A lot of it was already spoon fed to you. I don't think you needed every single thing, right?
Yeah, and like the last hour or so comes with like a lot of sort of environmental reveals. Like you find out that this isn't the walled city, this is walled city 99. So that creates like a huge question of what the hell's going on with all the other ones. Like, is humanity alive somewhere else? Are they all like this? Did they all succumb to the same plague that seemed to wipe out all the humans in this one? Like, lots of questions get asked, and going beyond is just like the way that I felt like that was thematically unnecessary for the cat to be reunited with its friends at the end, or at least for us to be explicitly shown that happening. Just speaking purely pragmatically, this ending makes complete sense for two reasons. One, it would have been really fucking dumb if the cats had just conveniently been standing at exactly the right place they needed to wait for their friend to come back. Like, this cat traveled really far, and the other cats had no reason to be like, oh, we'll just walk all the way around to the other side of the city to find our friend. Like, do I personally think that, if we don't see anything else, the cat eventually found its friend? Because, why wouldn't I hope for that? But if they had just been standing there, it would have just been like asinine. Like Nate said, it would have been like very preschool level. Like I don't need that, because it would be way too contrived and convenient for the cats to have just been there. It makes more sense for them not to be. And also, if you don't have them meet the cat, the cat meet its friends at the end, you can make a sequel.
Yeah, I talked about this actually. Like, it seemed like there is potential room for like something else to be added, if not a sequel, like a side story or something. Yeah.
Like, if we don't get a sequel, I'm perfectly fine with this ending. Y'all know that I'm like a fan of like kind of ambiguous endings that leave you with a lot of stuff to think about, as long as it's like clear that was the intention, and it is pretty clear that was the intention. So I don't know. I feel like it would have been just way too clean in a story that like probably just made you cry like about 10 minutes before that, if you were emotionally invested at all.
I cried.
I also cried. so that like it all feels really strangely bad faith. And you know, the original article that I was responding to was absolutely of the nature of like complaining that the game had a story, complaining that the robots existed at all and that you interacted with them on any level. And this doesn't make sense to me. Like there's so many takes that I've seen that like you first of all, you can't make this game be a perfect cat simulator because the person playing it isn't a cat.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have really any kind of engaging experience, you can't actually have the cat behave like a cat in all situations because they're just going to go sleep somewhere and you're not going to have a game to play.
Yeah.
Like I own one of these stupid things. Like she doesn't do anything all the time. Like the people that are like, oh well, I wanted to be wandering through a wasteland, and it's like, okay, so what that would be the cat walking for like 10 minutes and then deciding to sleep, walking for maybe another 5 minutes, and then finding another cozy spot to sleep in for 2 hours. And it's like, this is not, you can't make the game that authentic. No one would want to play it. And then second of all, I also saw people that were saying like, oh, I don't like the Assassin's Creed style game as opposed to just a pure platformer. A pure platformer, I don't think pick to the experience of being a cat either, because like cats don't jump for no reason. They jump in a very specific way and they land in a very specific way. And I think that having predetermined landing spots is the best way to replicate that, because a cat's not just going to jump on a platform. A cat is going to know that it can reach a platform before it jumps, you know, 99% of the time.
That's interesting that that's a take, because not only, you know, outside of feeling or trying to be more true to like a cat, I suppose, you're also really affecting the art direction probably and the animation direction in that sense. Like imagine moving through such a very like gorgeous like open sort of area just to then be limited and like flat on like a platforming area. I feel like that would really take away from a lot of the visual appeal that the game has to offer.
Yeah, like the design would have to be taken in such a dramatically different direction, and it really would be like, I'm just imagining all the sequences where you have to like jump onto really narrow ledges and stuff and trying to do that like an actual platformer as opposed to something more on rails, and it like the thought of that drives me insane.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of keep going down points if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah,
go for it.
So actually, let me pull up my piece.
Oh, I see how it is.
Well, because I you know kind of already went down the list. I just want to especially since I have the original article linked in the there we go. Kotaku was wrong about Stray, and here's why. So the original title of the article that I responded to, which I don't know if you've seen this, Semi, because I was raging about it, but the title of this article was "Stray should have been a game entirely about kittens, not shooting." And then the subheadline was also, "Why am I collecting energy drink cans?" And it's like this entire headline is in such remarkably bad faith for someone who that it just like I saw red. I went into the Annotate Discord and just went off about how mad I was, because like this is someone that finished the game and knows exactly how minor both of those elements that they're complaining about in the headline are. And it's an entire article complaining about the game, like video gamey elements, basically. It's like complaining that an album you just bought feels too music-y, you know? Like
well, to be fair, I listen to math rock. So to a lot of people, that sounds like noise.
Oh god. I'm surprised the energy drink thing was even brought up. That's such like,
I know,
that's the tiniest thing ever in the game. Most people go by that. Most people don't even like notice the energy drink thing. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the energy drink thing, because the energy drinks. So there are 4 vending machines in the slums exploration area, and there's a little side quest you can do. If you find one of them, you can trade it for a musical score, which you bring to a robot that's got a guitar, and he plays a little tune for you. And there's a bunch of those to collect in this area. But they're kind of all like scattered in houses and stuff like that, just like laying on people's desks and stuff. With those, and only 4 energy drink cans. So I think that would have been the more prudent thing to complain about if you were going to complain about collectibles in this game. And then the other 3 you trade in for one of B12's memories. And that is the only engagement that you have with the energy drinks. It's not like they're not like coins in Mario or stars or whatever. Like you find 4 vending machines and that's it.
You mean
it is the most minor thing to complain about, because it will represent like maybe 20.
No, man. All you need to do is get 50 cans. Then you can go fight Bowser. Then finally you can say so long, big Bowser.
Like, how often in games that someone just has to collect a few things to get an item? Like, it's just a standard thing, and for that to be a focus of it was only 4 cans. Like you really, I don't know. That seems too.
And you don't have to do it. You are free to completely pass this over, because the thing that you actually need to progress the story from the vendor requires you to trade him a different thing that you got from an NPC.
Yeah.
So very, very silly thing to complain about. The shooting thing. So I'm not totally sure which thing this headline refers to. It could be either the section where you actually get like a little weapon to fight back against the head crab germs.
That's what I thought when you said shooting, because I was like, what do you mean shooting? And then that was the only thing I could think of.
Because he does complain about that section specifically, saying that it felt like the game was trying to be too like action survivally, and it's like it's more complaining about the video game having video game stuff in it. And a section of the game is so brief, like that lasts maybe half an hour.
Oh, definitely.
Before flashlight taken away from you and it doesn't come back.
Yeah, that part of the game, I think having the whole the shooting thing with your side robot was, I think it was excellently done, because that's the main part of the game where you really feel the threat of all the Zergs. That's what they're called, right? The head crab monsters.
Yes, the Zergs.
Right?
They do look almost exactly like head crabs. I don't know how they haven't gotten sued.
And their names are very close to Zerg.
Okay, so Zergs. I did say Zerg at first anyway.
It's okay.
But yeah, like, you see them throughout the game, but that part is when you really feel them as like such a threat, because now you're encapsulated in their dark territory, right? And if you didn't have, like, if I could see where they could try to just still make it like an escapey thing, but I think adding that temporary shooting element, mind you, it's only there for such a small portion. Like, adding that just like gives you something dynamic and new to play around with for just a little bit before
that way you're not just like doing another escape sequence, especially like the only other time that you really feel the tension is if you're going for the achievement that requires you to finish to get through the first chase without getting touched at all, and then you feel the tension, because that is maybe the most difficult trophy in the entire game. But in terms of like this actual section of the game, it helps to break up, it makes you not helpless for the first time. And that's, you still feel like you're under threat, because there's hundreds of these things coming at you, because you're basically in their nest. Like all the overgrowth and the decay and the gross bacteria, and it is pretty nasty, but like actually having the opportunity to get through it without just running away is exciting for a second, especially since like the mechanic, you have such limited use of it because you can only keep the light on for like 3 seconds at a time. I mentioned in my review, I think that this game like for all the little mini gameplay segments, like it doesn't give you time to get tired of any of them because they're all pretty simple, but they don't last very long, and you get the hang of each one, and then you're done. And because the other thing where shooting might potentially is the other segment that I can think of that's like this, which is towards the end of the game where you're running away from the sentry robots, and you have to stealth through the factory, and then the apartment building, and then the prison. You can get shot at, but like I don't know, it's a stealth sequence. Like, what do you the robot cop trying to take the cat down because the cat has the drone attached to it, and the drone is trying to escape the city.
Yeah.
I loved,
like, I don't it's so weird.
No, I think they should have went one step further and instead just gave the cat a cat AK-47.
oh god.
The when I heard the shooting, my first instinct was, yo, the cat gets a gun.
For me, I actually quite love those stealth portions because like the whole like it made it, you know, fun, little gimmicky, like, oh, you have to hide in the box.
I loved hiding in the box.
Yeah. Oh my god, isn't it like so sad when you're just as you're jumping into the box is when you get shot, and so you're dead in the box. It's the saddest feeling, but it was fun.
I know, but like also just like a game about being a cat isn't complete without the opportunity to jump into a box as long as you please. So
So weird. You guys act like you've never played Metal Gear before.
Yes, but is Solid Snake a cat, Nate?
He could be. Meow.
Oh my god. No, please. Please.
There, now.
And then like the story of the robots. I thought it was really touching. I loved, like, you know, getting to know the couple of them that you talked to multiple times, getting to see like the way that the game makes it clear like what its theme is in terms of like these are what humanity left behind, and this is the new, you know, the new humanity, and they act like us, so bound by our decisions that we made. And I thought that that was really interesting, and I liked that they had like formed a robot society around stuff like that they might not even need to do. There's a robot grandma that knits ponchos for the other robots because they simulate being like, that's, I love that. I don't know how you couldn't love that. I
loved the whole reference to Back to the Future with the dog robot. Like it took me a second to even realize what they were doing, and when they did it, like I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing! That's so cool!" But then also made me think, "Oh, damn, that kind of made me think more about the society." It was like, are they kind of shaped or characterized based after like some of the human things that they may have been exposed to or whatnot? Like, you know, it like I thought it was touching and very well done. Yeah.
So kind of what this all builds to, and this is something that I did directly go after in my piece, but like I've been kind of thinking about it for the last couple of weeks. I've encountered a couple of different instances of like sort of a fundamental uncuriosity, like people going into something with exact expectations for what it's going to be, and like just behaving like absolute, you know, animals if it's not exactly what they expected. And that is the overwhelming feeling that I got from both the original article and the interview about the ending. Is these are people that are just a game about cats. And I don't like that. Speaking as a games journalist, like and a critic of any kind of media, I think you should go into as many things as possible with as open a mind as possible. Like if we had gotten you to review that new Outbreak game and it had actually been like good, surprisingly, I'm pretty sure you would have given it a good review.
Oh yeah. In fact, funny enough, is because my first review was so horrible, if this other one even came out as like, oh shit, this is playable and fun, it would have gotten like a 6 or 7 easy, because of how bad that first game was. But that's how my perception worked. I am very much about like throwing everything aside. which is why I was able to come into Trails, because famously I came into Trails thinking it was Persona, and that ruined my first pass at it. But once I was able to throw all that crap aside, I came and enjoyed the game. So them being like, oh crap, this wasn't, Cat Simulator 2020 or 2022 or whatever you want. It's like, okay.
Semi, how about you? Any thoughts on, have you experienced any of this with your reviews or anything?
Like in terms of like, wait, what are you trying to like exactly elaborate on there?
So like people being upset that like they had exacting expectations for something, and then being upset like that the game, that like whatever thing it was wasn't exactly that, and not seemingly being completely not open to the idea of it being, something that was still good despite their expectation not quite being met.
I don't know if I necessarily had that as a reaction to any of the reviews I've done. Typically, more of my reviews are more the narrative-based games, and so they're coming in expecting a narrative, right? And they don't usually defer from that, even if the narrative is bad. I would say for people expecting with what they were expecting with Stray, I didn't even have, even if you didn't come in open-minded personally, like this game just was so simple and effective. Like it can't to really try to complicate it, and I think that's what people are doing. It's like trying to add more and more elements to analyze when it's not really meant for that, I feel like.
Or like people, saying, oh, these are all the cat features that should have been in the game instead of this other thing that distracted you from being a cat.
There's
like people saying that the cat like seems to give a shit about the robot.
I mean, if you really want to like delve into it, maybe you could have questioned like why these robots were just so willing to accept this cat everywhere, like the nightclub or whatever. But I feel like at that point it just becomes nitpicky.
I agree. So one thing that I do want to highlight before I kind of hand it over to Semi to talk about himself for a sec. There is a game that is coming out, I believe, this year. It's another smaller indie title called Little Kitty Big City that I think is probably going to be exactly what all these people wanted out of Stray. So I would go check that out on Steam. It says planned release date. Cats don't have deadlines.
I've never heard of this. I want to add it now.
So go check that out. And before we head to the break, Semi, do you want to kind of plug yourself a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So if I'm Semi, I do write articles for Noisy Pixel. For game reviews, I mostly do focus on the narrative-based things, but I do play a wide variety of genres. I also stream on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/semisin. And I play a wide variety of games on there, like almost any genre: shooters, platformers, visual novels, RPGs. Like I'm very open-minded to that. It gets really comfy and cozy in there. It can get a little sussy in there, so 18 plus please, but yeah, otherwise feel free to come on by.
Aren't you maybe sort of kind of debuting soon with your full?
Yeah, so I am currently a PNG tuber. I will be a live 2D VTuber very soon. I will say I don't have the debut date exact yet, but it will be sooner than a lot of people might think.
All right. So once again, if you want to find Semi on Twitch, that is twitch.tv/SEMYSIN. Excuse me, SIN. I don't know why I said it that way. And I'm going to mention that again at the end of the episode when I do our little outro. But Semi, thank you for joining us to talk about this.
Yeah, no, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're going to take a quick break, and then after we come back, we're going to talk about the potential fall of streaming as we know it. Thankfully, we have a little bit more information since the first day that all of this news came out, but it leaves us with a lot to talk about. So I'm excited for that. We'll see you guys in a minute. Welcome back, everybody. In the first half of this week's episode, we kind of had a discussion about the internet's discourse regarding and what it was and what it wasn't. And now in part 2, we're going to discuss the other huge nerd culture news that's kind of been exploding basically all week, trending on Twitter the whole time. And that is the potential downfall of HBO Max and a lot of other Warner Brothers owned properties. Sorry. So we got a couple of warning shots here. The first one was actually the week before, on July 25th, TBS announced, which is a network that is owned by Viacom, which is owned by, you know, it's in the chain, announced that Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, which is one of, I think it might be the only late night show in America currently that still has a female host, was ending after 7 seasons for seemingly no real reason. And then that kind of kicked off a bunch of other seemingly disconnected announcements of cancellations for other things that culminated on Tuesday with the revelation that the basically finished Batgirl movie would never be released. So effectively, this film was basically almost done being edited, is pretty much ready to go, cost $90 million to make, has been shelved completely, and is being used as a tax route, which means can never be released in any form whatsoever. That it's not coming to physical, it's not going to stream, it's not coming out in theaters. This movie has been thrown away, along with the 90 million that it cost to make. And all of a sudden, we start getting bombshell news that the merger between Discovery Plus and HBO Max is not going the way that a lot of people seem to think it would, with HBO Max, you know, basically eating Discovery Plus and it just becoming part of that service. No, it turns out that it's going to be the other way around for some reason. And also the guy that took,
because it's not a merger, this is an acquisition.
Well, it is literally a merger. Like, these companies didn't acquire each other. There's no
Discovery acquired Warner Brothers. That's the reports I was reading, that Discovery acquired Warner Brothers.
No, AT&T merged Discovery and Warner Media to create Warner Brothers Discovery. So it's sort of like how Activision doesn't own Blizzard. They are Activision Blizzard. So they are the same company, like kind of on equal footing. Well, apparently not quite so much, because the guy that took over was not the guy that most people were expecting to take over. It was David Zaslav, who was the CEO of Discovery, and apparently has some opinions about the value of scripted media. So this guy, frankly, he looks like a Fox News commentator mixed with a WWE wrestler, and apparently has said that diversity is not a priority for him, which is why the board of Warner Brothers Discovery is pretty much entirely other old white guys. So that sucks. And news started coming down that he was making executive decisions to cancel tons of projects regardless of what stage of production they were in, so that he could write them off on the company's taxes, because apparently he did not see any kind of future for pretty much anything that isn't either a billion-dollar blockbuster or reality TV. In the days since, we've had some sort of like, okay, maybe this isn't like quite as bad as we thought for all these shows, but we do know that a very, very large portion, probably the majority of the development team at HBO Max is being laid off. And a lot of programs have already been chopped, one of which near and dear to my heart was Close Enough, the animated series created by Cartoon Network Studios and J.G. Quintel, who previously was the creator of Regular Show. Went 3 seasons and was suddenly canceled. And now the future of a lot of other HBO Max original properties is very much up in the air. A lot of people thought that Warner Brothers Interactive might be in trouble. All we've really heard from is the Multiversus team, who say that they're unaffected, which you would hope so, because that just came out, and it would suck for that to be shot in the head so quickly. But yeah, I was kind of left panicking for a lot of reasons. What was your initial reaction to all of this?
My initial reaction was kind of like a head scratcher. Go, okay. And then as details kept going on, and they were like, yeah, scripted content is going, this going. I was like, crap. I like, one of the only DC properties I actually really like right now, as far as the media is Harley Quinn. The new Harley Quinn show. And my first thought was, they just released that 3rd season. Does that mean that we're going to watch this 3rd season and then they're going to axe it because they don't feel value in it? Because as far as I'm aware, they're just going to, it's all in the ether.
It's kind of all up in the air. And I felt that for both Harley Quinn and Doom Patrol. Because Doom Patrol is... I love this show so much. Like, it's the best show nobody's watching.
Brendan Fraser.
Everybody wants to know where. Yeah, everybody wants to know where Brendan Fraser went. I'm like, he's been in this show for 3 years. Have y'all missed it?
Yeah, and he plays fantastically as this washed up piece of shit person.
And it has Mirabelle from Encanto in it.
Yeah, I did not realize that was her.
Actually, no, not Mirabelle. Excuse me, Isabella.
Isabella.
The sister is Jane Doe.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
It's a marvelous show. I was really, really like, oh my god, what if they get rid of it? Because a lot of these properties that are up in the air have already been renewed. The other huge one was Our Flag Means Death, which blew the internet up in April and May, and finally got a renewal in June because it seemed like the company was waiting for Pride Month to actually announce it. And now we don't know if it's even happening. Because they might just cancel it anyway.
Yes, because it's all pre-merger.
No, it's still released post-merger, but like in terms of actually merging the services, we don't know.
So any deals, from what I understand with how these work, any deals made prior, they can reevaluate now that they're finished. Which is why it's up in the air.
The actual merging of the services, which it more or less looks like they're glomming together rather than HBO Max eating Discovery Plus, sort of the way that Crunchyroll subsumed Funimation. It looks like, no, we're going to like just shove them together like peanut butter and jelly. But that's the actual merger isn't rolling out until summer of next year in the US specifically, and then throughout 2024 for the rest of the world. I don't want to like really fearmonger on this because we don't know. We don't know exactly how much this is going to affect. Zaslav himself has been interviewed and said, everybody's overreacting, guys. Like, I'm not killing all scripted content because that would be insane. But it does seem like a lot of breaks are being hit, and a lot of people are concerned that we might be going back to HBO pre-HBO Max, when getting it was really, really difficult. You had to have a cable subscription or an Amazon Prime subscription or something like that in order to access their library. And if you didn't have a cable subscription to build it off of, what you could access was extremely limited. Now we're like blessed to have the entire HBO library available, and it would really suck to go back.
Well, especially since HBO Max covers quite a few exclusive deals, particularly with Doctor Who.
I was thinking that too. And like that one's also the reason why that one is so up in the air is because the company that actually produces Doctor Who, Bad Wolf Productions,
Yeah.
I believe is currently owned by Sony. I believe Sony bought them, last year.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize that.
So I don't know what kind of rights they hold to Doctor Who, but yeah, that was interesting.
That one's gonna be rough. Yeah.
The moment that really shell shocked me was thinking about, you know, we did an episode a couple months ago on the Crunchyroll Funimation merger, and I had a realization that if AT&T had not sold Crunchyroll before, it would be dead now.
Yeah, I think it might have been dead or subsumed into this quietly.
And probably made significantly worse.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's Crunchyroll news this week too. Crunchyroll, the news came out the day before yesterday as we're recording that Crunchyroll's buying Right Stuff. So
yeah,
the vertical integration train keeps on a chugging, and that's gonna have, you know, far-reaching consequences. But
yeah,
I would rather have that than have the world's largest legal anime distributor die. Because a guy that thinks that reality TV is the only valid form of television because it's the most profitable, decide that the anime streaming service, he doesn't get it and he'd rather just kill it.
Yeah.
And so kind of following off of the way that these networks are being presented, let me see if I can find the graphic. But we got basically a leak of the full presentation from the shareholders meeting that occurred on Thursday of Warner Brothers Discovery. And one of the very first slides was a contrast between HBO Max and Discovery Plus. And oh boy, I'm going to see if I can pull it up so that I can quote it verbatim.
Yeah. Because this will be very interesting. Which I want to see why, because HBO Max, from what I understand, was very, very popular. In fact, I was touted as the best streaming service out there right now.
A lot of people are considering HBO Max now to be like at the level that Netflix was in like 2013, 2014, 2015.
Yes. So it's even more baffling that they're doing this.
Okay, I found the infographic.
Cool.
So this is a slide from their presentation. It says unique and complementary is the top line, and then it's got like two circles that look like a separated Venn diagram. One of them is HBO Max and one of them is Discovery Plus. And under HBO Max, it says male skew, scripted, lean in, appointment viewing, home of fandoms. And under Discovery Plus, it says female skew, unscripted, lean back, comfort viewing, home of genredoms. So HBO Max is for boys and Discovery Plus is for girls, apparently.
But that also, it gives me a real thing. It means women, you know what women really like? You know what women really want? They want reality TV. And I'm like, that sounds weird, because I know plenty of women who love Harley Quinn, who love Doctor Who love everything about HBO Max. So I don't know.
I love Euphoria.
I forgot about Euphoria. I fucking forgot about Euphoria. Oh my god.
My favorite comment that I saw under this was, yes, the two genders, HBO Max and Discovery Plus.
Man,
my brain melts at the absolute, like, I understand what this is trying to say in terms of demographics, but what it reads to me is the energy of Cartoon Network canceling Young Justice because girls don't buy action figures. That is the energy that we're bringing into this, and it's technically the same company. So absolutely infuriating. Big bad or horrible move. The rest of it, I get it. I understand the entire rest of this infographic. I don't know what the hell genredoms means, but I understand the difference between like appointment viewing being like, oh, the new Game of Thrones is out, I have to watch it, as opposed to comfort viewing being like, hey, let's sit back and watch a couple episodes of Fixer Upper with Chip and Joanna Gaines. I get like the difference between like lean in, you know, scripted television and you want to know what happens next, and lean back stuff that you're just watching because it makes you relax and feel good. it's just the unnecessary sexism present is
man.
blowing my mind because it just doesn't need to be there.
Hey, Zaslav is excited for that Flash movie. He fucking can't wait for that shit.
Yeah, that's kind of the other big talking point, is that the Flash movie is going forward despite the fact that their star is a radioactive PR nightmare.
Let's not even be like he's radioactive PR nightmare. He is literally a criminal on the run.
They.
I keep forgetting about that. My friend told me about that last time, and it's because, as far as I'm aware, I'm out of the DC universe. That's not talked about.
No, Ezra Miller has been non-binary for several years now. And it is important to me that regardless of how I feel about someone, I address them the way that they want to be addressed, because that is a value I want other people to have, you know. So
this was information.
They can be a shit tier person, but I will refer to them how they want me to.
No, this is information that was literally told to me yesterday.
That's understandable.
I didn't know that at all.
If you look at a lot of the pictures of them like online, it's very like androgynous. Like they'll be wearing like lipstick, but they'll have a beard or something like that. Like it's very like Freddie Mercury kind of vibes.
Okay.
But that movie, which cost $200 million and was in scripting and development hell for the last 5 years, is moving forward with release basically because they can't afford to not make money off of it. But the Batgirl movie is for girls, and so we don't care.
Yeah, because we'll
write it off on our taxes.
Which I think the comparison I saw a lot was if you're familiar with this movie, The Producers.
Yes.
And
I wanna be a producer. Yeah.
And it hit me as this what it feels like. Like it was. Like, hey, we're just gonna make all this stuff. We're gonna merge it because you know what? It's gonna make more money for us if this all failed, and we'll just write it off.
But it's like it doesn't even like they're not even giving this stuff the chance to fail.
No.
Like, and the Batgirl movie seems like it was a much more modest production than we're used to from DC films, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that a movie about Batgirl needs to be a CG visual effects spectacular, I don't need the Batgirl movie to be Thor Love and Thunder for me to love it, because I love Batgirl.
Yeah. Well, and that's even funnier is because some of the most popular Batman movies aren't like these spectacular marvels of such special effects either.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they're coming in like if billions weren't spent on this, whatever.
But they were like, that's the frustrating part, is that this is $90 million. That's just like flushed.
Yeah, just
and yes, they will get some of it, written off on their taxes, but it's just frustrating for something to be that close to being done, and for that, like, this is almost unprecedented. Most studios with this kind of movie on their hands, they would just like shove it out with a limited theatrical release to make the union happy, and then put it out on video on demand.
Yeah.
If they thought it was bad, and maybe the movie was bad, but like we'll literally never know.
No, because I've heard so many conflicting reports, and of course the Snyder fans are going, it was crap anyways. But I don't trust
they'll say
them.
that about anything that Zack Snyder didn't touch. So
yeah.
It's just, this entire thing is such a goddamn
no, it's a huge mess. And I don't know how true this is. I heard that Warner Brothers laid off a big chunk of their animation team.
Well, we already knew that because they canceled, close enough. Yeah. I imagine that we're going to hear about several Cartoon Network closures coming up.
Which that sucks, because Cartoon Network can't take any more hits like that. Pretty soon it'll just be Teen Titans Go.
And this has kind of got a lot of people talking about, like, what does this mean for the wider industry? Is this the streaming bubble finally popping? Which is kind of interesting, because this isn't really how anyone thought it would go. We all thought that we were going to see, one of these broadcast networks try to make their own streaming network happen and it fails and loses a bunch of money. We all thought that it would be a Quibi situation.
Yeah.
And Quibi ended up being basically an isolated incident because it was based on a bad idea from the get-go, and it was being made by people who fundamentally did not understand the audience that they were trying to market it to.
Yeah.
This, like, it genuinely feels like, okay, we have this wildly successful prestige streaming network. I guess it's time to take it out back and shoot it like Old Yeller.
Yeah. It's just randomly,
and Old Yeller doesn't even have rabies yet.
Yeah. There's just some guy walked up, looked, hey HBO, how you doing? Hey,
like, it's just done. And again, like Nate said, HBO Max has seen like a renaissance in popularity because there's all these shows that people have gotten really attached to that have been on it, and it's frustrating to watch all of that just go completely to waste potentially if all these rumors turn out to be true. I'm really hoping that we as the internet are overreacting to this, but I am emotionally preparing to find out that a lot of the stuff that I really love is just going away. And I'm frankly concerned for what this means for DC Comics itself. Because DC has been in kind of a weird spot for a while now, where they just have found themselves completely unable to compete. And we're in a world where comics as a whole are just not as profitable as they used to be. They don't sell as well. There's way more people that will go see a Marvel movie than will ever even think about buying a Marvel comic. And DC Comics has already, in 2011, they did a whole big, universal relaunch with 52 weekly titles, and now we're down to less than 20 in the current era. And like, a lot of those aren't even like ongoing. They're limited run series, which might work better in terms of like, hey, we're not putting too much money into this thing that, might end up flopping. We're already making it so that it's finite. And if it like succeeds wildly, we can just commission a second series. But it's, it's kind of telling that the comic industry is changing. My Hero Academia pretty regularly outsells all American comic books. And you have the ridiculous dominance of all the webtoon platforms that I just get bombarded with ads for on YouTube, regardless of how many times I tell them to stop showing me this ad. And so I'm worried about how this, what the future of this less profitable arm of this company might be, because like in terms of quality, DC Comics are in a really good spot right now. They finally turned it around from how much everybody hated that relaunch in 2011. But the DC also tried to start a premium streaming network that failed really hard and got folded into HBO Max. And now all these shows are doing like much, much better than they ever were on the DC specific streaming network, because that was a dumb idea. But now they're all up in the air again.
It sounded like it would have been a good idea on thing of the DC Unlimited or whatever it was called. Because you get to read the comics and then go watch the TV show. And it sounded like a good idea on paper till you realize it's not going to be a big draw for anybody.
Well, so it was called DC Universe originally.
DC Universe.
And it was only supposed to have a rotating comic catalog, and then all of these original DC shows. I think the only ones that are still, famously Swamp Thing was canceled 8 episodes in, and then Titans, Harley Quinn, and Doom Patrol are, as far as we know, all still going, which reminds me, the Arrowverse is canceled.
I thought the Arrowverse had been canceled for a while now.
Legends of Tomorrow has been canceled, and Flash has been canceled.
Oh, they finally canceled Flash.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
But after DC Universe lost a bunch of money on these shows and couldn't get the subscribers to make the money back, basically when the shows and movies were folded into HBO Max, it became DC Universe Infinite, which I actually have. I really appreciate it as a service, which has like pretty much almost the entire history of DC Comics and everything. Pretty all the new releases just on a 6-month delay, so that it's not eating the actual sales of the comic books.
What little sales they have, yeah.
So it's been rocky times for a lot of these parts of this, like, and then we get into Warner Brothers Interactive, which is in a questionable place right now. The one silver lining that I have found in all of this is that this by itself might kill the possibility of a Hogwarts Legacy sequel.
Yeah, it probably will. God, that's so weird. So weird, man. Because they even just came out with Multiversus, which is doing fantastic.
Right, it's doing amazingly, but it's also free to play. So I don't know how many of the people playing it have spent money on it.
Oh, I've run into at least people who have already laid down the over $100. And because you can just tell from whatever trinkets they have.
Hogwarts Legacy, as much as I don't want to talk about it, is about to come out, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was delayed into next year and is now kind of up in the air, given that we're already canceling finished projects.
Yep.
So there's a lot of stuff that's in jeopardy. It's really frustrating to watch as a fan of a lot of these properties, especially since basically it seems like Zaslav very primarily focuses on these reality TV shows that are very cheap to make and make a pretty solid return on investment, as opposed to properties that make that cost 90 million and don't make $1 billion. It's either we're taking small swings that'll probably work and we barely risked anything anyway, or we're taking huge swings to continue trying to copy the goddamn MCU, which is already seeing its own heavily diminishing returns.
It's because of all the like, I still enjoy Marvel Cinematic Universe. I still really do, but I am starting to get fatigued myself. I just finished Miss Marvel, and that wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But that's another conversation for another time. Sad. That's all I can say. It's sad. I'm a big, superhero fan. I'm not into DC as much, but it's sad to see that this might effectively kill one of the biggest comics studios, let alone
and the one that popularized superheroes to begin with.
It's I might not like them as much, but it's sad to see all that history just poof.
So those are kind of, I don't really have any final thoughts. The more that I say, it's really just I am hoping to be wrong about this, and
I want to be wrong.
We're going to keep up with this story if we have, more significant developments, if we get confirmations that these projects that are up in the air are potentially back on. Obviously, I wish the best to all of the teams and people involved. It really sucks what's happening to a lot of them. Especially since in several cases the rug is just being pulled out from beneath them at the last second. I want good things, and I don't really see much of a positive in this beyond the one petty thing I said before, but I hope that as many people as possible get to keep their jobs and get to keep making the things that we love as the fan base. And that's kind of all I got here. We're gonna end on a big old downer note.
I'm also hoping we're wrong. I'm hoping that we are overreacting, that this is just thing, and that HBO Max will just have more reality TV content than scripted content. But at this point, it sounds like the game was always rigged from the start, to quote one of my favorite games.
And that's kind of all we got for now. Like I said, we'll keep up with this if anything big happens, and we'll let you know.
Yeah.
But for now, I want to thank you guys for watching / listening to another episode of Stray Pixels podcast. Completely lost my train of thought. Hang on, let me go grab my fucking script thing.
Your script, yeah.
I don't know how I haven't memorized it by now. I've said it almost 30 times.
It's literally like you'll get tripped up on it. I had to, all the reviews I've laced, I had to have it up too. So
I have the review outro memorized. Okay, I got it. Thank you guys for listening to another episode of the Stray Pixels podcast. We post theoretically every Tuesday on your podcast app of choice and on the Noisy Pixel YouTube channel. What do you guys think of the HBO Max and Discovery thing? What do you guys think of the Stray Discourse? Did you read my piece? I'm pretty happy with it, and it did not get a lot of readership, but I said what I felt needed to be said. Let us know in the comments on YouTube. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about on a future episode, you can leave a comment under this video or talk to us on Twitter. You can find me, Colin, at the Arcane Ranger. You can find Nate at Less Than Nathan. Did I get that right?
Yeah, at Less Than Nathan. Okay.
And you can find Semi at SemiSin. That's at SEMYSIN, or at twitch.tv/SemiSin. The site itself at Noisy Pixel News. Oh my gosh, I'm tripping over my words.
Yep.
The Stray Pixels podcast is brought to you by NoisyPixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to bring you the latest news, reviews, previews, podcasts, and more. Please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up with our future content, and join our community Discord server where you can talk nerdy with us. We will see you guys next week.
Boyle.
Bye.